The controversial reason why Bewitched really went off the air. Bewitched originally aired on September 17, 1964, and it's still beloved by fans today. The show itself only lasted 8 seasons, but Samantha's signature twitchy nose is something nearly everyone still recognizes to this day. Multiple spin-offs hit the airways over the years, but none of them could quite capture what the original series did so well. Here are some things you probably didn't know about Bewitched, including some revelations by the cast and crew. The films that inspired the iconic show. After watching the films I Married a Witch and Bell, Book and Candle, Sol Sachs created the TV show. He based the pilot episode script off the elements of both movies. In interviews after the show aired, he said he wasn't concerned about any legal action because both movies were owned by Columbia Pictures. That studio owned Screen Gems, which produced the Bewitched TV series. Anti-aging potion in real life. Elizabeth was a beautiful young woman in the 1960s and well into her later years. She must have used an anti-aging spell on herself. Seriously, she probably just took excellent care of herself, exercising and eating the appropriate foods. Despite the fact that she appeared to be healthy on the outside, she was actually suffering from undisclosed health issues that were kept hidden away. The Man Who Almost Was Darren. While the show was casting in its early days, Richard Sargent came close to being signed on to play Darren Stevens. However, while the pilot searched for someone to fill Samantha's role, Sargent took another job. We'll never know how Crenna would have done if he'd been seriously considered for the part, or how differently the show might have turned out with a different actor playing Darren. Elizabeth Montgomery assumed multiple roles in Bewitched. Elizabeth Montgomery played Elizabeth, Samantha's cousin Serena, and also played herself. When credited for playing Serena, she used the moniker Pandora Spox. Her appearance varied depending on the character. In And Then There Were Three, we see her as both Serena and her cousin. York steps up. Richard Sargent passed on the role of Darren to play Richard Crenna, but after The Real McCoys, Crenna also turned it down. Dick York ended up getting cast instead, though later Sargent took over again for a short time. Unfortunately, the show didn't make it past the cast changes. Dick York's real reason for leaving. Dick York's departure from the show was never explained, but it was rumored that he had to leave because of an addiction to pain medications. It's said that while filming Condura, Dick tore most of the muscles on the right side of his back and was prescribed pain medication by doctors. However, this became a long-term problem and affected his ability to film future episodes. Enter Dick Sargent. During Season 5 of Bewitched, a new doctor gives York some B12 when he visits the physician's office during a lunch break from filming. York had an adverse reaction to the vitamin and experienced a seizure on set, after which he was rushed to the hospital. He never returned, and the series went Darrenless for several episodes until Dick Sargent stepped in. It was one of just a few poor moments for the well-liked program. Elizabeth Montgomery's real-life pregnancies. Elizabeth Montgomery got pregnant 3 times while filming the TV series. The first child was born in July 1964. Producers were able to write 2 of Montgomery's pregnancies into the script, adding Tabitha and Adam to the Stevens family. It's not a popular choice to add children into a show when an actor gets pregnant. Oftentimes, Hollywood tricks like creative camera angles are used to hide it from viewers. Dick York's charm as Darren Stevens. Darren Stevens was the mortal spouse of wife Samantha Stevens on Bewitched. Despite his fame, Dick York only took on a few more projects after Bewitched ended its run. Given his health issues, this isn't really much of a surprise for fans of the series. Alice's Emmy Award. 2 months after her death, actress and producer Bernadette McEntee was presented with a posthumous Outstanding Supporting Actress Emmy for her portrayal of Nosy Gladys. It's not unusual for actors and actresses to be given honors posthumously. However, she began the decision to conceal her illness from her fellow cast members and show producers, which was unusual because the series had just begun and her passing came as a surprise to everyone in the business. The truth behind their costumes. In the TV business, it was standard practice to try to minimize expenditures for new programs and even some well-established series at that time in the program's popularity. This was also a great method for supporting cast members to bring their own flair into their parts. A special brooch. The late Agnes Moorehead often sported a starburst brooch with 8.5 carats of old mine diamonds, which her bewitched co-star and close friend Elizabeth Montgomery frequently admired. Upon Moorehead's death in 1974, it was revealed that she had willed the treasured piece of jewelry to Montgomery in a touching gesture. Off-camera friendships bloomed. Despite his reported drug habit, Agnes Moorehead didn't want to see Dick York leave the show after it had finished taping. Despite his alleged addiction to painkillers, Moorehead didn't want to see York depart the series. Sargent allegedly squabbled with her on several occasions and upset him on a regular basis. Cold shoulder. Moorehead, as stated before, enjoyed York's work on TV and was distressed when Dick Sargent replaced him. It turns out that those disagreements may have actually helped improve one friendship on the set of Bewitched. Elizabeth Montgomery and Sargent became friends for life because they stuck by each other during tough times while filming the series. Marion Lorne's interesting collection. It's difficult to forget Aunt Clara, the amusing yet bumbling character. In the show, Marion Lorne's real-life obsession with doorknobs inspired Aunt Clara's obsessive love of them. The actress had a collection of over 1,000 antique doorknobs. It may appear odd that someone would collect doorknobs from old doors. Nevertheless, watching any collector program on TV today will reveal that such knobs can be quite valuable and sought after by collectors. Larry Tate's son's tragic naming and fate. On Bewitched, when Larry and Louise Tate were blessed with a son, David White, who played Larry, requested that he be named Jonathan. After his wife died of complications during her second pregnancy, White had a son off-screen named Jonathan, whom he'd raised as a single father. The show's creators considered it an incredible gesture and accepted right away to name the character after Larry's real-life son. David White's heartbreaking sorrow. Larry's son Jonathan was killed in the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland in 1988. 2 years later, David died of a heart attack and they're buried together at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. For years, many people thought that the cast of Bewitched had been cursed because various cast members passed away at a young age. Tabitha's post-Bewitched life. Roles on hit shows like Lassie and Bewitched, made dozens of commercial appearances, did swimwear modeling, auditioned for parts with huge stars such as Helen Hunt and Jodie Foster. Her family eventually decided to move to Orange County, which gave her a chance for a normal teenage experience. Eventually, she was crowned homecoming queen at her high school before moving forward in life. The secret behind Samantha's magic. In the 1960s, before CGI made magic with the push of a button, stagehands had to work hard to produce Samantha's magic. Elizabeth Montgomery would stand in place with her arms up while the director yelled "cut," and frantic stagehands ran onto the set to remove any clutter. It wasn't as high-tech or based on today's standards, but it worked quickly and provided a low-cost solution that fueled the show's magic. The show ended because its star wanted out. Before Bewitched started, series star Elizabeth Montgomery had considered retiring from acting. Bill Asher, her husband and a producer, convinced her to do the show. After 8 seasons, the network was ready for more, but Montgomery was over it. Herbie J. Pilato, the author of Twitch Upon a Star, explained, "Bewitched was actually renewed for seasons 9 and 10, but she wanted out. It was at the same time that Montgomery's marriage to Asher began to unravel." The sitcom came to an end in 1972, and the couple divorced a year later. Unique sense of humor. In an interview with Fox News in 2017, Erin Murphy, who played Tabitha on the show, spoke about the cast. While Elizabeth Montgomery may have seemed like a goody two-shoes, Murphy says she wasn't scared to get her hands dirty. She had a filthy sense of humor. She was just one of those people who was so beautiful but didn't mind looking silly, kind of like Lucille Ball. They could be really campy and funny. There was no hesitation there. Samantha's unorthodox arm workouts. Elizabeth was told not to drop her arms because there was no CGI, and everything had to be manually performed and relocated on set. Elizabeth was required to keep her arms in the same position while the director yelled "cut" and everyone else moved around her. She was only permitted to lower her arms and continue the scene after the director shouted "action." The mysterious theme song. The famous song does, in fact, have words. The words are never sung during the show's opening credits, but the theme for Bewitched did have lyrics. "You've Got Me Under Your Spell" sings one of the lyrics. It's fascinating to listen to what ended up on the cutting room floor before the program aired. Darren's perspective. The lyrics to Bewitched theme song are pretty interesting when you think about it. They were written from Darren's perspective, as if he knew his wife was a witch. Of course, they could also be interpreted as being about a man who's simply spellbound by the woman he's in love with. Either way, it's an interesting little piece of trivia. Elizabeth Montgomery's obituary is so wrong. Elizabeth Montgomery was a private person who never divulged her age or other personal information to the public. Even at the time of her death, only her 57 years were published, when she was actually 62. Similarly, because Elizabeth chose not to reveal her marriage to Robert Foxworth publicly, several obituaries listed her as a living single, even though she wasn't. Death certificate inconsistencies. Did you know that the late Hollywood superstar Elizabeth Montgomery had her own age and marital status incorrectly listed on her obituaries? Not to mention, even her death certificate got her own name wrong. If you take a look at it, you'll see that it lists her full name as Elizabeth A. Montgomery. However, avid fans of hers will remember that her middle name was Victoria, not Anne. Nevertheless, she kept fairly private, given how often she was in the public eye. Drunk on set. Bewitched, on the other hand, was filmed in the 1960s, and alcohol consumption was regarded far more lightly in America than it is today. Various Hollywood-based unions would not allow the usage of alcohol on a working set nowadays. Record-breaking drinking habits. The rules were more stringent when children were on set, according to the show. Actors were instructed to imitate the appearance of various alcoholic beverages with iced tea. In a moment of life imitating art, Dick Wilson frequently played a drunk on the series. Elizabeth almost didn't make the cut. The show's creator, Saul Sachs, earnestly wanted an actress by the name of Tammy Grimes to play his lead witch, who was first supposed to be called Cassandra, not Samantha. Sachs liked that Grimes had a natural elfin look. However, in the end, Saul Sachs and Bill Asher chose Elizabeth Montgomery for the role. It's hard to envision anyone else playing her part so perfectly, especially someone who doesn't fit the description of looking elfish. Cassandra wasn't meant to be. Grimes was replaced by Elizabeth Montgomery as the female lead, and although she auditioned for the original role, she remained under contract with Screen Gems and was unable to take the part. The character was renamed Samantha. Elizabeth Montgomery was cast, and history continued to move forward. Grimes starred in numerous movies and on Broadway for many years after that. She passed away in 2016 at the age of 82. Home is where the magic is. For the Bewitched set, the house from which Gidget was filmed was duplicated and reversed. The patio and interior living rooms were duplicates from an earlier Gidget film. This was a common practice for movie studios to get the most out of their money when they had limited funds and needed to recycle. Gladys Kravitz's Hand-Me-Down. The lot and neighborhood known as Blondie Street, after the early serial movie of Blondie and Dagwood Bumstead, had been used for about 50 years. It's made appearances in a variety of television shows and sets in different time periods. For example, during the run of Bewitched, Samantha and Darren's nosy neighbor, Mrs. Kravitz, also lived in the Partridge home. The debut of the Partridge Family came before the end of Bewitched's run, so for 2 series, both families shared a home on screen. Gladys Kravitz and the Partridge Family. The house was lived in by the Partridge Family, and Gladys Kravitz was a modest 2-story house with a white picket fence. The fence was taken down in 1999, and bay windows now replace the front windows used in the Bewitched days. The front door is also fairly different. The picture below is from the year 2000. If you're facing the Partridge house, the home next door to the right was used in I Dream of Jeannie as Major Nelson in Jeannie's house. More on that later. When filming The Partridge Family, about 3 feet of Jeannie's front yard had to be removed in order to widen the driveway to accommodate the bus. It's since been restored to its original width. There were two Tabithas? The casting of twin sisters, Erin and Diane Murphy, as the Stevens daughter, Tabitha, was arranged. It's typical for twins to be utilized, particularly for roles involving babies. Because the role was shared, the youngsters could work on set at different times, avoiding any accusation of child labor laws being broken. This method is still in use today. A natural talent. While one baby may have been favored over the other due to their distinct personalities, they still received equal credit for the part. War of the Witches. When I Dream of Jeannie debuted on NBC, only 1 year after ABC aired its popular show Bewitched, people drew comparisons between the two. Elizabeth Montgomery was not pleased by this turn of events. In fact, even now, casual viewers often mix up some episodes from the shows. Nothing personal. Elizabeth Montgomery never felt any personal animosity toward either I Dream of Jeannie's stars, Barbara Eden or Larry Hagman. Although both shows were about gorgeous blonde women with magical powers, Jeannie was a 2,000-year-old genie who falls in love with a NASA astronaut, and they shared similar plot lines. Occasionally, in the end, both the shows are remembered for their quirky characters and the charm they brought to television screens. Tragedy over the airwaves. Following the conclusion of the TV series, many of the show's stars experienced bad luck, and several events on the set took place during filming, including this tragedy. I Confess. I Confess, in which Darren becomes furious with Samantha for employing her magic excessively, was the episode that was cut short to announce Martin Luther King's assassination. He fears she'll out herself as a witch this way and decides they should tell everyone right away. To persuade him not to do it, Sam has Darren dream that he explains his talents to everyone. Bad responses he gets from his confession cause him to remember. Never actually a nose wiggle. Erin Murphy, the actress who played Montgomery's daughter, Tabitha, has revealed that Montgomery's nose wiggle was actually a camera trick. If you look closely at Samantha's nose, you'll notice that it never actually wiggles. Her upper lip is moving instead. Some people have claimed that Samantha's mouth movements did move her nose, but in fact, human noses don't have the muscles required to move like that. Sharing actors with Jeannie. Bewitched featured a slew of humorous, strange side characters. Paul Lynde played Uncle Arthur, my favorite. Surprisingly, Lynde also appeared 3 times on I Dream of Jeannie as an IRS agent, a film director, and a NASA commander. On Charlotte's Web, he was the Rat Templeton. He was also a frequent and popular guest on game shows. Dr. Bombay, the Witch Doctor. Dr. Bombay, the Stevens family physician, was a witch doctor portrayed by character actor Bernard Fox. Usually appearing in outlandish costumes, Dr. Bombay made 2 appearances on the spin-off series Tabitha. An amazing character actor, Bernard Fox went on to make appearances in other shows and films throughout his career, including Titanic and The Mummy, before he passed away in 2016. Hocus Smocus. Many of the heavy smokers on Bewitched smoked in real life. Elizabeth Montgomery supposedly was a chain smoker, as well as Paul Lynde. Dick York averaged smoking 3 packs a day. In contrast, Tabitha, actress Erin Murphy, said in an interview later on, "I remember my parents constantly saying smoking is bad, and I would think to myself, if smoking is that harmful, why does everybody around me do it?" A curse? Some fans speculate that there was a real-life curse on the show. A high percentage of its cast ended up dying of cancer-related causes. Many also died young. Besides Elizabeth Montgomery, other major cast members to die at relatively young ages, under 65, include Alice Pierce of cancer, Paul Lynde of a heart attack, Dick York of emphysema, and Dick Sargent, cancer. It's hard to say whether this sad statistic can be attributed to witchcraft or to unhealthy lifestyle decisions. Before Jaws, there was Bewitched. Richard Dreyfuss made his television debut in 1966 with a role on the program Man's Best Friend. In it, he portrays a guy named Rodney, who was formerly a demanding little warlock that Samantha had looked after. Rodney has grown older and now professes his love for Samantha while turning himself into a dog to remain in her house. Darren is taken with the dog and Sam's at her wit's end, trying to figure out how to get rid of it. Richard Dreyfuss is now undoubtedly one of Hollywood's biggest stars. More Tabitha, please. Many fans of Bewitched were sorely disappointed with the spin-off Tabitha. The series was based on Samantha and Darren's daughter as an adult. However, the original actress, Erin Murphy, wasn't a part of it. Lisa Hartman Black played Tabitha in the show Knots Landing and went on to have a very successful career. Clint Black, well-known country musician, married Lisa Hartman later down the road. Broadcasting publicist Joni Hartman Rogers passed away in 2017, February, unexpectedly. Erin Murphy's later years. Murphy also worked as a makeup artist, casting director, stunt double, fashion stylist, acting teacher, and motivational speaker in her later years. However, one of her most important tasks is an outspoken supporter for autism awareness. Her son Parker was diagnosed with the condition. Murphy is also a businesswoman who sells low-calorie frozen vodka martini pops. She's certainly made an impact with the time she's spent outside of show business. Real-life relationships. People are interested in the behind-the-scenes connection between Samantha and Tabitha. Erin Murphy, a child actor on Bewitched, recently gave an ABC interview about her experience on the series. She stated that she was extremely close to her television parents, even calling them by their nicknames, Darren Daddy and Mantha Mommy. I looked up to her as a parent, and she'd tell me what I should do like a parent. Murphy says in many ways she's more similar to Agnes Moorehead than her own mother, which is amusing. In addition, she was quite close with Agnes Moorehead's character, who played her grandmother on the show. Changing characters. As we learned earlier, the producers had to change both the actor who played Darren and the actress who played nosy neighbor Gladys Kravitz. The original actress for Gladys was Alice Pierce, but she died from ovarian cancer before season 3. Sandra Gould replaced her and made her debut in that season. Later, she also reprised her role as Gladys 5 years later in a spin-off series. Switching Darrens was bad for ratings. The Darren change took place after the series had been on air for 3 seasons. Audiences are rarely receptive to such a substantial character switch, and 1960s fans were no exception. The shift was poorly received by audiences, and viewership dropped sharply in the program's final 3 years. Some fans weren't ready to accept another actor in the role because they preferred Dick Sargent's performance, even if many people appreciated his portrayal. Secretary switcheroo. Marsha Wallace, who played Darren's secretary on the show, later voiced teacher Edna Crabapple on The Simpsons. Marsha also starred as Bob Newhart's assistant in the 1970s on The Bob Newhart Show. When she died, her role on The Simpsons was retired. Coincidental birthdays. Elizabeth Montgomery gave birth to her real-life daughter, Rebecca Asher, on the birthday of the twins playing Tabitha, June 17th. Was this a coincidence, or did something more magical take place? The picture here is of Diane Murphy, one of the actors who played Tabitha, which she did along with her twin Erin, of course, and Elizabeth's real daughter, Rebecca Asher. Asher has worked on films such as Donnie Darko, Knocked Up, and Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy. Bernard Fox dies at 89. After a full career, including playing Dr. Bombay on Bewitched, actor Bernard Fox passed away December 14, 2016. Bernard also played roles on other well-known television shows and films, including James Cameron's 1997 epic Titanic, for which he received a Screen Actors Guild nomination. A fifth-generation performer, Fox was 89 years old when he passed away in Van Nuys, California due to heart failure. He died at Valley Presbyterian Hospital. Finally out. On National Coming Out Day, October 11th, in 1991, Bewitched star Dick Sargent appeared on a Geraldo Rivera TV event and officially announced his homosexuality. Although he acknowledged that his decision to come out could have harmed his career, he said in a later interview that the relief of living openly as his real self was worth it. "I'll probably never be allowed to play a father symbol again. I'm afraid for my career. I'm probably going to lose a whole lot of work. I may even have to sell the house someday. But this is more important." He continued, "I like myself probably more than I have most of my life." In 1992, Elizabeth Montgomery co-marshaled the 1992 Los Angeles Pride Parade with Sargent in support of his decision. The events pictured here. A long-lasting legacy. Bewitched is still popular with fans today. Despite having aired its final episode several decades ago, many young people are familiar with Samantha's clan and their witchy ways. The show can still be found on TV, having aired throughout the world in syndication since the show ended in 1972. The show's also been released on DVD so that a new generation of viewers can fall in love with the classic show. The complete series can be found online for just $30, so if you're looking to get your hands on this iconic television series, you're in luck.